Okay, very good morning, everyone. Sorry. Okay, good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Good
Can.
morning.
Good morning.
So how are you? How are you guys today? Did you have your coffee? Do you? Okay. All right. There are already 9. I believe we're going to start straight away because there are more coming. Should we? Perhaps they might going to have something to do at the moment, but it's okay. Since this session is going to be a recorded session, everything. Good morning. Everything going to be uploaded accordingly and shared accordingly to you later. All right. So before we start, let me introduce myself. For the people who came from the UG campus, perhaps you are seeing me around. But then for my colleague from the Penang campus, perhaps this is the first time that you're seeing me. So let me introduce myself. My name is Ruzanna binti Wan Ibrahim. You can see my name from the slide over there. I'm a staff from the Teaching and Learning Center. I can say I'm not really a new staff. I'm a rejoining staff. Means I used to work with the KDU before under the School of Hospitality and Tourism and Culinary Arts. And then I left the company for quite years and come back and rejoined the Teaching and Learning Center since last year. So yes, I'm a returning staff, old staff and returning staff, joining the TLC Center. And then beside that, I'm also appointed MQA panel for the disciplines of the culinary and gastronomy, which is my expertise, I can say, my discipline area when helping the MQA with the audit is mostly toward the culinary and gastronomy program. So today's sessions, okay, how long that I've been with the MQA is basically, this is getting my 5th years, I believe. And I still consider myself as a junior because I'm still new. I'm still learning from all my senior because they have a lot of other panel. They have been with the MQA, helping them, assist them with the accreditation, program accreditation for more than 10 years. Some of them are basically 20 years. So my very small experience, basically I can say, is still a lot of things that I can learn. I need to learn accordingly from them. And then today's session is basically to give some, I can say, a view or a sight that what is basically MQA expected during the audit. Because along this year, I can say past 4 or 5 years, I've been doing a lot on the program accreditation, especially on the level 1 up until level 6. Because my due to my background concerns, I'm only able to audit program from the level 1 up until level 6. Level 1 is basically certificate, 1, 2, 3, diploma, advanced diploma, and also bachelor degree. So yes, I'm quite active. I can say for the culinary and gastronomy program, MQA I receive almost every month on the new program applications. Ada je, okay? Ada je means like they have a lot. Program new application are basically opening up through all the university and colleges across the Malaysia. Across the Malaysia means not necessarily in the Klang Valley, not necessarily in the KL. Some accreditation are basically in the other state, which is require us to travel, and all the expenses are basically being covered. Definitely. Okay, right. So today's sessions is basically to understand MQA expectation during the audit. Why I'm doing this training session, basically I received a lot of inquiry, especially recently. Most of the program are basically went through under 04 audit, right? Which is audit, compliance audit pematuhan. So people keep on coming to me, Zana, I'm so worried. Zana, we are having the pematuhan very soon. Zana, what are you going to do? Blah, 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 and so on and so forth. And most of the time I'm going to tell them, guys, don't worry, you are doing just good. So doing just good means I know you can get through all this 04 audit, which is audit pematuhan. Why? Because I'm also part of the company now, and I'm seeing how did you guys run the program, and I know every single time they have audit come, you can always make through. Okay, perhaps they have some sort of here and there that we're going to help up to strengthen all general document alignment. That's up basically on today's sessions. And then, yes, on that concern, I'm going to move into the next slide. Okay, why my slide is not moving? Hold on, give me a second. Okay, there you go. Okay, training objective. So what we are going to look throughout these 3-hour sessions, I hope we're going to make it happen than less than 3 hours. I know it's a Friday, everyone. So who does the class on Friday, wasn't it? Okay, so first is to understand MQA expectation and audit requirement. So I'm going to give a very clear view with my very little experience that I have at the moment on what is MQA expectation every single time that we went out for the audit. To strengthen this, to strengthen the alignment of the curriculum, your documentation, delivery, method of delivery, teaching delivery, assessment, and also documentation, to improve program readiness through the effective quality assurance. So when we talk about the program readiness, this is I'm looking through, which is I wanted you guys to be ready to means whenever all the things all the things when come to the audit, you have to be ready first before you are able to run through the audits. Okay, and then okay, then the training outline. This is my training outline for today's session. First thing first, definitely introductions, and then we're going to look into the key area to focus to preparing the documentation, preparing for MQA review and visit, and the next part is example of the audit report. So I can see my today's session, I'm going to divide it into 2 sessions. The first session is basically at the moment, which is we're going to discuss every single thing that we need to we need to go through when come to the audit, and then we're going to have a break later. Then after we came back from the break, then I'm going to show you some of the example from my audit report, which is from there you can see where's the problem, why is the problem coming from, and how you're going to solve it here and there and so on. It's just a general example that I pick up from here and there from my audit report to give you guys some ideas why they have such comment from the panels and how you're going to improve it. That's what we're going to do, okay, for today's session. Okay, so bear with me. Like I said, I try to make it happen less than 3 hours. So, and the last part, after all the example, definitely I'm going to open for the Q&A sessions. And I can assume they have a lot of questions coming from you guys, but it's okay. As much as I can, I try to help up to answering all the questions. Okay, let's move to the first session. Introduction, why understanding MQA expectation matter? So why we need to understand what is the expectation? Because to make it easy for the audit, okay? MQA audit visit, should I be worried? Are you guys worried? Every time they have a audit basically scheduled for your program, risau ke tak risau? Risau kan? So most of the time, they're going to say, Zana, I'm so worried, I'm so worried. Then I'm going to say, don't have to, okay? As long as you guys are ready, the audit going to be easy. Why I'm saying so? Whenever I went for the audit, I know some of the PPT. PPT is a Pusat Pengajian Tinggi, or HEP, Higher Education Provider. I'm so used with the term of PPT. So whenever I say PPT, I do believe, I do hope you guys understand it's basically referring to the HEP. So whenever I went for the audit, then I'll meet the PPT people representative. They're always going to say, Puan, we didn't Puan, we didn't sleep for quite a week to prepare the document. Puan, we are so worried on today audit. Puan, can we pass through all this 2-day audit? And then most of the time, I'm going to say, why you guys don't sleep? Go ahead and sleep. We just here to check either you are basically doing okay, doing all right on your documents. Don't be worried so much. Why? Because this is basically the thing that you have to do, and you are basically used to it. Very used. Why? Because audit is basically, I'm not going to say it's come often, but then every 5 years, you're going to go for the same cycle of things, which is compliant especially. They're going to come and audit for every 5 years cycle, which is You guys are master already. You guys are senior already. So nothing to be worried about. Okay. Should I be worried? I can say don't have to. Okay. Why? Because as long as you ensure your document is clear and consistent, everything going to be okay. Reduce error and non-compliant repeated corrections as much as you can. Minimize the problems. Minimize the problem, the issue on your documentation. Help staff, academic staff understand the quality requirement. This is basically, I believe, is the most of the concerns or problem, which is most of our academic staff. I'm not going to say everyone in today's training, perhaps someone who not joining are basically not really clear how we're going to do the quality assurance. So today's topic, I'm going to make sure you guys are basically very clear what is the quality assurance and what we are expect during the audit. And build a continuous quality improvement culture. This is what I'm saying. When you don't have to be worried whenever your school, your program have the continuous quality improvement culture. So which is to do the CQI, continuous quality improvement from time to time. So when you have the CQI, everything going to be okay for your audit. And always keep the program audit ready. So means your program are basically everything documented. The CQI have been done a yearly basis or quarterly basis, depending on the program needs. And all documents are basically aligned. So means your document are basically what we consider as audit ready. So that when audit came, you can peacefully have a good sleep even before the audit days. Okay. All right, what MQA expect from a program? So most of the time, they are looking toward the clear and updated PEO, PLO, and also CLO. Very common. They're going to make sure all the things are aligned and constructive alignment. So this is basically the one that I'm stressing on my previous training. So whoever are basically sitting with me on the CLO mapping, you guys know that how much important is the constructive alignment is, especially on your documentation, especially on the table 4, which is your document have to be aligned from here top up until the bottom. Okay, so if they have no constructive alignment, there must be a problem with the document, with the program that you are running. So, and then the next is a body of knowledge book. Okay, so how many of you not familiar with the body of knowledge? Or maybe perhaps first time dengar, heard about the body of knowledge. Everyone familiar, kan? Very well, right? If you are not familiar, I can see, please open your program standards. You will see clearly what is a body of knowledge. So your program need to have a well-defined body of knowledge, because this is one of the things that panel are going to look at whenever they are assessing the program. And adequate staffing, you have to make sure that your staff are basically enough to teach the students, enough number, including the facility and other learning resources. And strong governance, which is the board member for the school, for the university. So they have to be a reliable person that able to approve and oversee all the program need. And evidence of the CQI, especially if you went through the 04 audit, which is our compliant audit pematuhan. Audit pematuhan, which is compliant audit, CQI is very important. I can say the most compulsory questions they're going to ask is basically CQI, CQI, and CQI. Because the panel wanted to see either that the program are basically been improved on the past 5 years. Okay, if they have no improvement, definitely they have a problem over there. Okay, cool? Cool? All right. Am I going too fast? No? Okay. Okay, kan? All right. If I'm going too fast, just let me know. I'm going to slow down a bit, because most of the time when I'm teaching a student in the class, they're going to say, Miss, you are going too fast. Can you slow down a bit? Then I will. Okay. All right. All right. Thank you. Okay. The next one, the panel auditor perspective, how they think. Okay. When we talk about how the auditor are basically think, I can say it depending what type of audit that we need to be through. Okay, one thing that we have to understand, or PPT have to understand, is basically most of the panel, audit panel, auditor, or APP, ahli panel penilai, uh, we've been called for the course with the MQA from time to time, and they are basically setting a specific standard for us whenever we run for the audit. So we can say our perspective going to be different depending on the audit that we went through. So the audit that we have at the moment, especially for the physical and also virtual audit, is basically audit 02. 02 is a PA, partial accreditation, provisional accreditation, sorry. FA, full accreditation, and 03, and also 04 audit is a compliant audit. So different audit, they require different needs, and also auditor need to have different perspective toward it. Okay, let's say for example, if I've been called for the 02 audit, 02 audit is conventional accreditation, which is this is a very new program. This is a new submissions. So perhaps the PPT or the HEP are basically just new to just very new for the program. And then what we're going to do whenever we receive this audit document for the PA submissions, we can say our perspective is basically we wanted to help the PPT. Help means as a panel, we cannot judge them, we cannot penalize them because they are very new. They just submit a new submission. So whatever problems in the document, we're going to give a suggestion and help them to pass the audit, okay? Because it's a new submission. So we believe the PPT are basically very new to these program disciplines, so they need to learn. So we're going to help and teach them accordingly. So most of the time we don't penalize. For the full accreditation, it's a 03 audit. How does panel auditor going to think when come they to do the audit? They are basically going to say this FA, the program or the PPT should be ready. So means they should be able to meet all the requirement need for the FA. Okay, let's say for examples, because the FA to the PA to the FA, they're going to take at least 2 or 3 years before they are basically apply for the full accreditations. Okay, so we assume on the full accreditation audit, the PPT should ready to run the program perfectly. If the program requires specific equipments or tools or facilities, they should have that by then. It cannot be we're going to build the facility later. Cannot. It have to be ready by then. You are applying for the FA. If you don't see that you are meet the requirements, so they are most likely we are not able to give permissions, or we are going to pass the program, okay? Because like I said, for the full accreditation, the HEP have to be fully ready to run the program perfectly, no issue. And then for the compliance audit, okay, audit 04. So what is panel perspective when they came for the audit 04? We consider the PPT are basically a senior already for the program, because you already get the full accreditations, you already run the program for the last 5 years, you should be able to meet all the requirements without any problem. And then from time to time, you're going to improve the program accordingly as it needs. So the most of the time, we expect they have no issue when come to the 04 audit, okay? So if they have issue, then we're not going to say we penalize them. We're going to make sure it's going to be a compulsory thing to be completed in order to get for the next approval. Because 04, we expect no issue. Okay, right? Why? Because you are senior, you already know how to run the program accordingly. That's what the perspective of the panel when come to the different audit between the 04, 03, and also 02, 03, and 04 audit, from the PA to the compliance. All right. So what I have in the slide, what the auditor perspective is basically they look for the evidence, of course, evidence. Tak ada evidence macam mana nak paskan program, wasn't it? Okay, then they prioritize alignment and consistency across all documents. We wanted to see all documents are basically consistent and aligned. They have a time, not saying a time, they have one program that I audited previously, whereby atas tulis lain, the top are basically a different discussion, and then the bottom is basically different discussion, and make me wonder and make us wonder, because I came with the other panel and saying that what they are running actually, what they are wanting actually, atas tulis lain, bawah tulis lain. How was it? So yes, that's basically one of the issue. And then the aspect authenticity, not a template meaning or recycled document. Okay, trust me, panel can know if you are basically doing the document last minute. Okay, panel can know if the minute meeting just done like a day before the audit came. All right. Then they check for the sustainability, especially for the staff load and facilities, and they observe a process, not a promise. Okay, don't give us a promises. Okay, don't give, saying that we will improve, we will going to have the facility, we're going to make sure, we will. No will. We don't care, especially on the audit 04, okay, the compliance audit. We don't want to see promises. We doesn't want to hurt promises. We wanted the thing to have by here and there, okay? All right, then they assess whether the lecturer teach within their qualification and also expertise. This one I'm going to discuss along the way on my next slide when come to the lecture and we start a subject. All right. Key area to focus on preparing documentations. I do believe this is basically quite common. Everyone knows what to prepare for documentation. Am I right? Betul kan? Semua dah buat dah ni. Okay, you are basically very good at it. That's why I said they have no issue. I believe UOW program that we run in the UG and also Penang, you guys should have no problem when it comes to the curriculum design, teaching and learning delivery, assessment method, governance, and also a student support. This is a very common to understand when it comes to the program development, which is from time to time, the audit document checking, we are basically going to look through with all the things. Okay, so curriculum design as usual, logic and progressive curriculum structure, clear distributions, then complies with the program standards. Okay, if you open the program standard, you know they have a distribution of the subject, which is it need to comply accordingly depending on the level of study. If your program are running on the level 4 diploma, then it have to follow diploma level. If you're running on the level 5, level 6, it have to follow accordingly on the program standard. If you are not able to follow, let's say for example, because you are basically have running the dual program with the other outside university, and then you have to follow their structure, then make sure that you justify accordingly. Okay, make sure you are able to justify accordingly. Okay, then body of knowledge, as I mentioned earlier, it have to be ensure all your subjects are belong body of knowledge for your program, and up-to-date content on the CQI. Like I said, CQI are basically important, especially on the audit 04 pematuhan compliance. It a must questions going to be asked during the audit. And then constructive alignment, as usual, for the table 4 especially, you have to make sure whenever that you design table 4, they have a correct alignment from here to there, from PLO to CLO, from the CLO to teaching delivery, or even CLO to the assessment, which is already discussed this on my previous training. All right, teaching and learning delivery. Does we look into the teaching and learning delivery? Most of the time, yes. We're going to make sure that whatever program that might going to require specific teaching delivery, it's going to be applied accordingly. Okay, let's say, especially for the program that are basically heavy on the psychomotor, then if you need to run the practical classes, then you have to run accordingly. Let's say, for example, for my program that I'm assessed, like I said, my disciplines is basically culinary and gastronomy. most of the culinary subject and gastronomy subject is basically heavy on the psychomotor. Okay, so means this program, either you like it or not, it has to do the practical assessment accordingly. So every time I went for the audit, I will make sure every subject that require psychomotor domain, it need to be run accordingly as it need for the teaching classes, for the teaching and delivery method. So that's what we are looking for. But then for the subject that doesn't require more psychomotor, they are more to connective and affective, it's okay if it's going to be a classroom delivery tutorial and also the lecture, not a problem. Okay, cool? So lesson plan aligned with the table 4, and then teaching method following the learning domain, depending, again, like I said, if they are connective domain and effective only for your CLO, then it have to run accordingly. But if your CLO are basically measure on the psychomotor, your teaching domain or teaching method have to follow accordingly. Okay. You cannot be your CLO are basically run on psychomotor, but then your teaching method is only tutorial and also lecture, tutorial, lecture, tutorial. Yes, we have been facing those issues on the previous program that I audited. The CLO clearly assess on the psychomotor, but then when we look into the table 4 and teaching method, everything from the first week up until 12th week is basically lecture, tutorial, lecture, tutorial. And when we ask why is all teaching, what is a lecture and tutorial only? You are assessing the psychomotor. How you are assess psychomotor through the tutorial and lecture? It cannot be. Okay. All right. Then evidence of student engagement. If your program require specific study trick, for example, then make sure they have come with the valid evidence, student reports and rubric and so on, and consistent teaching documentations. As usual, everything need to be documented accordingly. All right. So next one, assessment. Please excuse me, I kind of like having a coughing this morning. Okay, assessment. Does assessment, okay, assessment have to align with the CLO. Okay, have to. Okay, so this is some of the what we can say is quite a problem also when we found in the documentations, whereby whatever they assess to the student are basically not what the CLO want. Okay, let me give you one example. Okay, like I said, for my disciplines, program discipline that for the culinary, most of the subjects are basically require psychomotor assessment. Okay, when it comes to the psychomotor, for the CLO. CLO clearly defined it requires psychomotor domains. Okay, but then when it comes to the assessment, none of the assessment are basically assessed toward the psychomotor. Why? Because what we can see from the document is basically assignment 1, assignment 2, assignment 3, and test and final exam. So the assignments is basically cognitive. 1 to 3, assignment 1 to 3 is cognitive, test is a cognitive, final exam is a cognitive. So you cannot assess cognitive assessment toward the psychomotor CLO. So it cannot be, it have to be aligned. If your CLO are basically define a psychomotor, your assessment also need to assess on psychomotor level. Okay, that's how it should be. Okay, then clear assessment blueprint. This is a very common. It need to be have a blueprint. Kenapa? Because like I said, MQA are basically need something that are able to measure. Remember, your CLO design have to be measurable. So how you're going to measure is from the blueprint. So every assessment as possible as you can, you have to come up with the specific rubric. Then valid and reliable rubric. Why I'm saying the valid and reliable rubric means your rubric nurture the program needs, the subject needs. Why? Because there also they also have an issue during my previous audit whereby they are using a standard rubric for every subject in the program. Even though we understand different subjects, they do have a different subject nature. Some subject might go to assess on here because you have to understand every subject, they do have a different CLO. So when different CLO means you cannot go for the same rubric for the assessment. It need to follow the subject needs and requirement. We can understand when the PPT say, Puan, senang nak buat rubric, so everyone follow the standard, the same standard on the rubric. Yes, we can understand that because I'm also a teacher. Okay, I'm also a teacher. I know how easy it can be for the program leader when you are using rubric for all subject, easy for documentation. But then what we are seeing as a panel, we're going to see every subject, they have their own subject nature, they have their own CLO. It cannot be you are using all the same template, same standard rubric for every subject that taught in the program. So it cannot be, okay? It have to be designed for the rubric, it have to be designed as for the specific subject need, okay? Cool? Okay, then evidence of assessment moderation, example final exam, I believe UOW have no issue on this, kan? So you guys are basically doing good on the assessment moderation and assessment information communicated to the student at the beginning of the semester, which is all the assignment information that you guys explain in the class and post accordingly on the LMS. So you are also good on that. We are also secure on that. All right. Next, governance. People who run the program. Okay. Does the compliance, does the audit basically look into the government? Yes, most of the time we wanted to see who as basically decision maker for the program. So what if they have a changes required for the program? Who going to approve it? How you guys approve it? What is the process on the approval? Blah, 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 and so on and so forth. We wanted to see that the program basically have a strong governance so that it can be run accordingly as it should, okay? Functioning program committee with a proper record. Everything, all the discussion, meeting have to be minuted accordingly, especially that related to the program concerns. Okay. Then clear decision making process and meeting minute with the actions. Transparent communication flow across the program, faculty, or even the management. Sorry. Stakeholder consultation, which is the feedback from the external advisor, industry advisor, or even the alumni. This is basically important on the stakeholder for your CQI matter. CQI means whenever that you do the CQI, program review, curriculum review, from time to time, it needs to be support from the report received from the external advisor, industry advisor, even your alumni. Okay, so means it needs to be have a strong support saying that, okay, we have a meeting with the external advisor, we have a visit from our industry advisor, and then they say these subjects are no longer reliable for the industry. So we need to change accordingly. Hence, we do the changes. That's a part of the CQI, which is it have to be strong evidence and strong support from all the feedback. But then somehow, whenever you need to do a CQI, does it need to have the strong support and evidence? Not necessary. Okay. It's good that you have a strong support or feedback from the external, but then sometimes you just want to change because you think this subject or this thing are basically obsolete for the program. It's no longer need. So you just want to change. Can you do it? Yes, boleh. Not a problem. Okay. So updated policy and procedure if needed. That's basically why the strong governance are basically required for the program. And then student support. So does the panel or does the auditor going to look into the student support? Yes. When it comes to the audit, we are not going to look into the PPT or documentation. We wanted to see what is the benefit that a student going to get from the program that you are designed to them. So you have to make sure whatever the student need are basically going to be give support accordingly for their program graduations and so on and so forth. That's why most of the audit, especially audit 03 and 04, they have interview with the student because we wanted to see the view, the student view. Are they getting all the needs in order to finish up the program, all right? So the common thing is basically access to the counseling, make sure that we have the advisor, counseling advisor for the program, effective induction for the new student and intake, proper guidance for a student at risk. So if the student have a problem when come to the study, what you're going to do, what the program going to do, they're going to send them for the counseling. If there, what is the evidence? So what if the student are basically not able to have a lower grading? What is the next steps, and so on and so forth. Adequate learning resources. So have to make sure all the learning resources required for the program are basically there. Okay, so again, like I said, if the program requires specific facilities, then the program need to prepare the facilities, need to make sure the facilities is there for the student learning. Okay, you cannot see, okay, let's say for example, we also have the concern last time on when my previous audit, because for my disciplines that audited, we require kitchen facilities. We call it it's a lab facilities, right? So they have one PPT, I'm not going to mention it, okay, it doesn't have the facility. So when we ask, and they are basically applying for the full accreditation. So during the audit, so when we ask about the facilities, then what they're showing us is basically a blueprint, a planned blueprint of the kitchen. Then when I ask why we are seeing the blueprint, we are not walking to the kitchen. Oh, this is basically our kitchen that we are planning to build. Planning to build. So where was kitchen going to fully fully there? Oh, in 2 years time. In 2 years time. But then you are applying for the full accreditation now at the moment. So how are we supposed to give you the approval if we don't see the facilities in front of our eyes? So we're going to get the student basically teach the kitchen on the next door. The next door, what we have the next door? The kitchens on the kedai makan next door, and so on and so forth. I mean, like, okay, we as a panel, we can understand some of the difficulty, perhaps the financial difficulty of the PPT and so on and so forth. But then, which is in order to build that such a facility, okay? Because building a kitchen is not cheap, okay? And then all the equipment have to be on the industry standard level. And we understand it's not cheap. But then, if you don't, our concern is, if you don't have the right facility, don't apply for the program, okay? So apply for the program that doesn't require specific facilities. That's our concern. So that the PPT are basically passing through the accreditation, I better not mention here, okay? You guys basically know what it was the answer. Okay, cool. So that's basically the thing. The student are basically have a right to study here, of course, because they are paying whatever fees it is, and get all the support during the study, especially when it comes to the learning resources. Okay, so you have to make sure that your program are ready on every learning resources, including the facility required. Okay, cool. Okay, clear channel feedback for clear channel for the student feedback. So if they have a problem, complaints or things, so where was the channel and how the higher management are basically cater the problems. So that's basically the things that the panel want to see when it comes to the student support. Okay, preparing for the MQA visit, the do and the don'ts. Okay. So what to know? Okay, how to prepare for the MQA visit. So as you can see here, keep the document updated, of course. Okay, of course, that's the most important thing. Did I have a questions? Anyone wanted to ask questions? No? Okay. Keep the documentation updated throughout the year, not near the audit. Of course, can. So that you can sleep peacefully when come to the audit. Okay, so when your documents are basically maintained along the way, so you have nothing to be worried. So everything is updated accordingly as in it. Okay, standardized course file, templates, and format. I believe they have no issue when come to the course file standardization. Review mapping, especially on the constructive alignment. Okay, which is I find out this is become the common issue when come to the mapping, CLO, and also constructive alignment on the table 4. I can say most of the PPT I audited, they have an issue when it comes to the mapping. We consider it as a very minor issue when it comes to the mapping, but yet it's still an issue. Okay, so conduct internal mock audit if needed. So you can always conduct the internal mock audit if needed to make sure that everything are basically ready for the audit, and train the staff to answer during the audit. Okay, so you have to make sure that your staff are basically able to answer accordingly when come to the audit. Okay, so there are always a time when we come to call the staff for the interview. Sorry, when call the staff during the interview, then we ask a simple question saying that, did you guys familiar on the OBE? Yes, familiar. Okay. Tell me, what is the MQF 2.0, the 5 domain that we have, and none of them are basically able to answer the question. Macam mana tu? Okay. So do you say that you're familiar with the OBE, but you are not able to answer what the MQA framework? Macam mana tu? Okay. So don't be. So make sure all your staff are basically well prepared, well knowledgeable when come to the questions. Okay, so usually most of the question is not asking about the OBE lah. Sometimes they can ask, the panel can ask if they want to, because we believe the staff should understand what is OBE is. So that's the thing. Okay, then maintaining the CPD record, continuous personal development. Yes, from time to time we wanted to see that the staff are basically have the CPD record, because we believe it's a must, it's a required for the staff to improve themselves so that they are able to teach the student accordingly as what it needs. Okay, then course allocations reflect lecturer qualification. Is this important? Yes, it is important. Okay, from my next session, I'm going to show you some of the audit example. Then they are clearly issued on the staff qualification and subject allocation. All right. Hold on. Why it's not moving? Okay. Okay, what a good practice look like. Okay, so how we're going to measure a good practice when come to the audit? First thing is basically PLO aligned with the MQF 2.0. Again, constructive alignment. Okay, constructive alignment, PLO, CLO, teaching method and assessment. I've been saying a lot about the constructive alignment, wasn't it? From the first slide until now, because it's all related to documentation. Because we find it's very important that your documents are basically aligned toward one to another. Okay. Comply with the program standard. It must comply with the program standard. If you have no idea what the program standard is, go and open the MQA website and check under the quality assurance document. You will find out everything that you need to know about your program standard, and everything that lies under program standard have to comply, need to comply accordingly, including body of knowledge, course outline review regularly, which is toward the CQI, well-documented CQI, and lecture teach within the academic background. I've been saying this also quite numbers, and teaching workload. Okay, support quality delivery. So I believe I have the head of program here, head of departments. I do have the program leader. So a program leader, I believe you guys are basically working on the timetable at the moment. Perhaps the teaching workloads are basically need to follow accordingly. Yeah. Okay. Otherwise, it's going to be a problem for your next audit visit. Okay. Understand CQI? Continual quality improvement. Okay. So how important the CQI is? I can say it's very important, especially if you went through audit 03, full accreditation, and also audit 04, pematuhan compliance audit, because they're going to be a compulsory question going to ask when come to the CQI. Okay, so for the pematuhan, for the compliance, there must be a question for this one. They come. They wanted to know how you're going to improve your program on the past 5 years. So what is the changes made? What how you document it? What is the proof that you are changed the program? And then for the audit 03, full accreditation. So okay, when come the full accreditation, we find out some of the PPT or program leader, they are very scared to do the CQI, because okay, let's say for example 03 audit, full accreditation audit, you are basically just applying for the full accreditation. So you are so worried to change. Okay, most of the comment that we get when I went for the 03 audit, they're going to say, Puan, can we do the CQI? Puan, we think we cannot have to change anything after the PA approval, provisional accreditation approval, because it's already approved on the PA. So when come to the FA, we just run whatever it's been approved earlier. Okay, is that right? I can say it's completely wrong. Okay, the duration from the PA to the FA usually going to take 2 or 3 years, depending on the program program duration. So along the 2 years or 3 years, it doesn't have any changes at all. We still are going to change, okay, because we believe the industry are changing out there. So when the industry are changing, the program needs to change also. Okay, so we believe within the 2 years or 3 years, they should have the improvement from the CQI for your program. Okay, they should have improvement for your program. Even though you're going to see this is basically the structure that already been approved on the PA. So we shouldn't change anything when come to the FA. Wrong. It's not. It's not supposed to be that way. Okay, it's a completely wrong idea. You can change. On the FA audit, we are also look into the CQI improvement, quality continuous improvement. But then we can see everything need to be documented and mandated accordingly from your Senate. So that's the thing. So CQI going to look especially on the 03 and also 04 audit. 03 again is a full accreditation, and 04 is a must questions. It's a compliant audit on the CQI. Okay, CQI is ongoing improvement using data, feedback, and evidence. Where the data come from the alumni survey, from the advisory panel reports, and so on. Based on student performance, industry trends, and stakeholder input, and it shows how the program improve. So it's almost impossible if you're going to see that within the 5 years, our program are not changing at all. Impossible. So, okay, it needs to be changed. It has to be changed because the industry are changing. So your program have to be improved accordingly as the industry needs. Because at the end of the day, we wanted to produce a graduates. They are basically able to meet the industry needs. That's why we require the CQI, right? So cycle of the plan, implement, monitor, review, and also improve. So this is a cycle, as you can see on my slide over there. There are specific, the source come from the GGP, monitoring and review, CIIQ. So if you wanted to learn more, you can always look into the GGP. It's a guideline to good practice. Monitoring and review under the CIQ is a continual industry quality, institution quality. Okay, CIQ. So they are discussed along the things about how important the CQI is. Okay, then for example, what the CQI you can do is basically curriculum review. Okay, that's why it always an advice for you for the program to do curriculum review for yearly basis if you need. And then or twice a year, depending on how much the program need a review, which is you're going to update your syllabus, revise the assessment method, industry-driven changes, and all the things that needed. Okay. All right, body of knowledge. Okay, I'm going to touch a bit because I believe most of you are basically quite familiar on the book. So it's defined core knowledge area required by the program standard. Every program standard have the body of knowledge, and your program have to follow accordingly depending on your discipline, depending on the program discipline. Ensure logic and progression from foundation to advanced learning. The reason why they have a body of knowledge is basically they're going to lead into the logic progressions of the program needs. Let's say, for example, you have the intermediate, you have the introduction program, intermediate program, and advanced subject, and so on and so forth. So they are going to lead, help toward the progression on the learning. Tak adalah SEM 1 je dah belajar advance. Cannot be. Okay, so it have to follow the sequence. Prevent content duplication across the program. Yes, this is basically one of the problem when come to the documentation audit, because there always an issue where they have a subject duplication. Let's say, for example, at the moment we are looking into the SDG, right? Sustainability, and then This is one PPT. They are basically trying that I updated earlier. That try to implement the SDG, which is we are truly understand. Okay, we are completely aware on this SDG, and then every program, every subject. Just give me a second. Okay, every subject, this PPT try to incorporate a sustainability topic, which is good, very good. Okay, every subject. Therefore, one small topic discussed on sustainability, and then beside that, the program also have one subject, not a topic. It's one subject that purely discusses sustainability also. So we can see they are basically a redundantness. You already have one subject that discuss sustainability. So why you incorporate all small topic of sustainability on every subject under the program? So it cannot be that way. All right. We understand that you are trying to meet all the compulsory things under VBE, SDG, and so on, but that it has to be designed accordingly as what the program needs. Okay. Ensure every course contribute to the program learning outcome and support lecturer course allocations based on the expertise and demonstrate a curriculum compliance, which is body of knowledge are basically going to define what is needed for the program under the curriculum compliance. Okay, lecture versus subject alignment. Finally, we come to this slide after all the little bit touch here and there from the earlier slide just now. Okay, so lecture versus subject alignment, is that important? I can say very important. So, okay, it's a very important that your lecturer basically teach according to their subject expertise. All right. Okay, so lecturer must teach within their academic background and area of expertise. Okay, industry experience strengthen teaching quality. If the lecturer have a good industry experience, is even better. It's going to help support their subject allocation. Course allocation or subject allocation must match a field of study, which is the background of the study of the lecturer. That's why we are asking the CV, curriculum vitae for every audit for your lecturer, because we wanted to check, does the lecturer basically teach according to their subject expertise or not? Okay, so field of study, area of specializations. If the subject requires specialization, then the teachers or the lecturer who teach them should have the same background accordingly and relevant industry experience. So if he or she came with a good academic background and also good industry experience, it's even better. Okay, it's even better means they are basically able to teach the subject they allocate to them. Okay, then mismatch. What happens if they have mismatched background? It's a complete red flag. Okay, so most of the time we are not going to allow it. Okay, because we believe the subject lecturer have to come with the people who are expert, that came from the same discipline as the subject that she or he teach. Okay, documented through the updated CV and also subject allocations. Okay, that's why it always compulsory for you, for the PPT, to provide the curriculum detail for the lecturer, because we're going to read through all the CV. Then make sure that the subject that the lecturer teach are basically following what is required on their background. Okay, common mistake. So this is basically some of the listed. It's basically a long list, but I'm listed only a few kat sini because this is basically the common they have been doing from time to time on the previous PPT that I audited. So learning outcome not measurables, common kan? So I believe our program that we run in the UOW now, everything was perfect for the CLO. Betul kan? Am I right? Everything measurable, wasn't it? Okay, it should be. Okay, it should be. Okay, CLO repeated across the course line. Across the courses. No depreciation. Okay, this is also quite common. Okay, why I'm saying quite common? Because especially toward the subject that have similar subject nature. Okay, I'm giving you one of the example for the culinary disciplines. Okay, we have a lot of the introduction subject, especially that require psychomotor, CLO. CLO that mapping to the psychomotor. So it means they have to be sitting in the kitchen and learning whatever it needs. So the repeated CLO is basically going to be the student need to work as a teamwork. The student then, let's say they have 10 subject for the kitchen, for the practical subject, and all basically CLO are basically need to be responsible, need to be teamwork, blah, 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 and so on and so forth, all the same CLO. It cannot be, okay? We understand the subject require teamwork. We understand the students should be responsible when they are basically sitting in the kitchen, in the lab. But then it cannot be all the 10 kitchen subject, the CLO is basically discuss on the same thing. Tak boleh lah macam tu. Okay, because we believe different subject have a different subject needs and nature. Okay, so it have to be designed accordingly to what the subject need. Okay, poor constructive alignment. This is also been discussed earlier. The alignment, they have no alignment, especially on your table 4. The mismatch. Lecture teaching load unrealistic. Tu dia, unrealistic. How can it be unrealistic? Following the GGP under the staffing, okay, they have a specific GGP, and they MQA just launched the new GGP on the academic staff. Okay, on the last 2 weeks, if I'm not mistaken, you can check the MQA website. GGP Guideline to Good Practice Academic Staff 2026. It mentioned they have not so much difference. It mentioned that the staff should take at least 20 hours for the teaching load per week, which is, we also can understand, okay, which is also mentioned under GGP. It also depending on the student number. Okay, depending on the student number. Okay, we also can understand if we went for the PPT and then the student number for the specific program are very low. Okay, very low, saying that they have only 2 students for the program, or they only have less than 10 students for the program. Can the staff take more than 20 hours per week? We can say yes, but it can be more than 20 hours if the student number is low, but then it have to be a reasonable number. Reasonable number means it depending on what is the weightage on the class preparation dekat situ. So if you wanted to know more, especially for the program leader and also head of school, you can always take a look on the new GGP on the staff academic. They just renew it. They just launched it like last 2 weeks, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. So lecture teaching load unrealistic. So if they are basically depending, like I said, depending on the subject. So if they are too much, saying that 30 hours per week or 35 hours per week for the lecturer teaching load, then we're going to advise accordingly lah. Kita akan tegur sikit, saying that that's too much for the lecturer, because you have to understand lecturer also require preparation for the class. The best practice is always 20 or a bit more lah, 20, 22. We can pejam mata sikit. Okay, then repeated course content across different courses, content redundancy, which is I already discussed earlier. Course file incomplete or inconsistent. No, okay, which is I believe we have no issue on the course file here on the UOW kan. Course file semua okay, cantik, cantik. Okay, minute done, last minute are too generic. This is why I say, okay, you have to remember panel are basically able to detect if your minutes are basically a dummy. If your minutes are basically done like 2 days ago before the audit came. Why? Because we read every document. We read every document that you send to the MQA. Okay? Because it's a must for us. We need to put the report on it. So if we are reading the minutes and we find out macam pelik je minute ni, then we check across the other document and nothing is stated in the minute are basically been done on the document that we received earlier. So kita tahulah that minute have been done last minute punya. Okay, alright. Then CQI report only during the audit, no continuous. This is also happen juga. Okay, whereby when we ask about the CQI during the audit, when was the CQI been done? Oh, we just done the CQI last week. Because they know the audit are coming this week. So they do the CQI last week. Macam mana tu? Okay, macam mana tu? It's only be done because the audit are basically coming. So don't be, okay, don't be. Lecture qualification not match a subject thought. Okay, that's what we discussed earlier. Your lecturer, the subject that allocate to them had to match their specific background and specialization. Mesti kena match. Kalau tak match, we don't allow it. Okay, so body of knowledge unclear and poorly structured. Okay, this is basically this first one under body of knowledge. All right, I believe it's time for break, everyone. Okay, can we take a 10 minutes break? Then we come back. Okay, like I said, after we come back, I'm going to show you some of my audit documents when it comes to the command and why does it happen and how we're going to improve it. So I see you again in 10 minutes. Everyone, toilet break or coffee break, whatever you call it. Thank you.